Who are these people? Oh, hello. Hello there, people. Welcome to the first live I've done in forever. Pretty pumped today. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised I didn't plan this to go on Amazon. Next time, y'all, next time. We're talking about digital etiquette today, and I am joined by the fabulousness that are my co-authors. Let me pop them up here on the screen real quick. We have Kendra Losee. Loose is loose. Loose. I always say it's Losee. I always want to say Losee. I like very like swag and delicious like that, like French or something. And then we have Eric Butow back up on the screen. What is up? What is up? Okay, so before we do our introductions, really quick, I would love to just say thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking not only about our awesome book, which is in Kendra's face kind of right now. I'll put it in my face. The Digital Etiquette for Dummies. It is the book that is worth reading, but you don't want to receive it as a gift. That's kind of our little joke. Pum-pum-pum-pum. And today we're going to be talking about our favorite digital etiquettes and faux pas. And we would love your engagement in the comments. So feel free to ask questions or, here's a great starter, a conversation starter. Tell us what do you think is like the biggest faux pas that people are still doing? You're like, why won't people just stop with this etiquette faux pas? And while you comment, I would love to have y'all introduce yourself. So let's start with Eric because he's at the very end over there. Eric, tell us a little about yourself.
Hi there, I'm Eric Butow. I am one of the three co-authors of Digital Etiquette for Dummies. I run Butow Communications Group out of Jackson, California. We do web design, online marketing, and writing. I've also written 43 books since 2000,
Wow.
and I am looking forward to chatting more with you about what's happening with digital etiquette in 2023.
Amazing. And let me throw another person up on the screen. Here's Kendra. Kendra, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am Kendra Losee. I think I'm stuck right now.
Nope, you just started moving again.
I'm Kendra Losee. I'm excited to be here. I am from marketing, which has now become KendraLosee.com. I'm a co-author. I am only a co-author of one book, not 43 like Eric. But I also, I've been teaching social media marketing at several universities as a professor, so I get to see lots of examples from students as well of good and bad etiquette.
Nice.
So I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And hey, everyone, Kelly Noble Mirabella. I am the co-author, obviously, of our fabulous book that we are presenting to you today, Digital Etiquette. And I'll be kind of the one that's going to push us along today because, man, we got things to do and we know you do too. That's good etiquette, right? Respect each other's time. So let me bring my awesome co-authors back up on the screen. Everyone's here. I asked the question a moment ago, what are some of your main faux pas? And of course, Rob, I love this one because it's happening so often. Cold messaging without permission. Ugh, that one gets me too. What would you guys say is like your biggest, right now, the biggest thing that's just bugging you that's bad, you see as bad etiquette?
I don't like being added to chat groups and getting messages when you can't get yourself off of them.
Especially like the and you know what? I think I wrote that chapter. the SMS ones are the worst because you can't remove yourself. Yes. Ooh.
The new Facebook group change to chat where they can like, you've mentioned here. Oh my gosh, that drives like nothing is going to get me to leave a Facebook group faster than like random messages hitting my inbox from people I don't know.
Absolutely. What about you, Eric? What is like your latest faux pas?
I think sharing information without somebody else's permission. I'm seeing that often.
I do see that a lot too. Especially if it's like you're in a Facebook group or a private chat and then they're like screenshotting and especially if it's publicly done. I'm not here for that. Mine right now is the cold emails. It's kind of along the same line of Kendra, but the cold emails where they just keep emailing you even though you're ignoring them. And then they're all, I don't know if you saw, or hey, you must have missed my message. And I'm just like, listen, I'm going to definitely block you and put you in the spam folder. But that one drives me nuts as well. And Rob says the at everyone. That one.
Yes.
I mean, we could talk a while about the etiquette of at everyone, can't we? So let's
Mm-hmm.
talk a little bit about our book. And since Eric is like the veteran the veteran author, I'll let you kind of start us off, Eric. What is the book about in from your perspective, and maybe like your favorite part of the book or writing the book, I guess.
Well, this is a thorough soup to nuts review of digital etiquette in 2023. This is also an evergreen book. So if you buy it, it's not going to go stale like a lot of product specific books or social networking books. They can actually go stale fairly quickly. But digital etiquette, no, this is something that you need for, you know, 2023 and 2033 and 2043 and on and on and on.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Um, this is a book that you can read cover to cover, or you can just pick out different chapters that you need to focus on. And the book is in dummy style, which means it's very easy to read, and it has it's actually split up into, let's see, how many parts do we have in here? One, two, three, four, five, six parts, including the part 10s at the back of the
I
book.
like the part
That's
tens. That's my style.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
a quick
Yep.
read.
that's a staple of Dummies books, and we have two chapters in there. One chapter that says, good manners to adopt, and the other chapter is bad manners to avoid. So we go through every. So if you don't see any other part of the book, go to those two chapters, and that'll get you started. And if you're
Absolutely.
talking about the my most favorite part of the book, I would probably say chapter two, which is talking about legal ins and outs of etiquette, because
Yeah.
the Wild West days are coming to an end. And now, um, world governments, federal U.S. government, and state governments, especially, are adopting a lot more regulation as far as, especially privacy is concerned. Because
Mm-hmm.
here in Canada, of course, we have two privacy laws on the books now, and we talk about um, Colorado, Vermont, Nevada, and
California.
Virginia that are adopting or have adopted new regulations. So if you're in business and you need to uh, adopt good digital etiquette practices online, that's a good chapter to read about.
I agree with you. I like the legal stuff. I'm kind of into like compliance and stuff, so I'm into that nerdy stuff.
Mhm.
Who wants to get sued? Not this girl. Not this girl at all.
No.
Before we jump into Kendra's favorite part of the book, I would just like to post here. I couldn't agree more. Lily says her pet peeve: sending a generic sales message like on LinkedIn where they don't at all check what I do. I know, like, I've been doing digital marketing for, gosh, forever. 15 years now, and they'll be like, hey, you look like you need help with your digital marketing. I'm like, yo, did you even take a second, just 1 second, and check out my profile? Yes.
Agree. I've gotten a few that were like, "Oh, Kendra, I noticed you're from San Diego. We have this in Michigan." Like, no, no.
Yeah, right.
Or the ones that are like, "Dear sir,
Mm, yes.
you own a business, dear
Those are
sir."
my
Like,
favorite. Those are fantastic. Kendra, what's your favorite part of the book?
you know, all the parts I wrote. No, just kidding. I just I think there's so many different invaluable takeaways from the book. Like Eric was saying, whether it's looking at the legal part, in that chapter, or in the compliance, or looking at the can spam compliance in terms of
Mm,
like who you can and can't message and some of those different aspects. But then there's also like our day-to-day pieces, right? Like what are the things that as you go throughout your day, what are the things that really impact you and can make a difference? And so whether it's, oh, I had a horrible 4-hour meeting, that didn't need to be a meeting, it could have been an email, or it's the emails that drive you crazy because they're passive aggressive and you don't realize it, but you're taking into account where you are, not where they are, and so you're reading between the lines, and then it can, you can just have such a bad day by some of these little things that just add up over time.
Yes.
And so those are some of the takeaways I think that can make a bigger difference in your day-to-day life, that it just, if people knew how to handle them and how to do them appropriately, that it would just, it's so much wasted time and energy that could be
I
avoided.
100% agree with you. And I know that it was discussed in the mobile section as well as I think you did the email section, right, Kendra?
Yeah.
And this idea of like, there is no tonality, right? So this goes both ways in that discussion. It goes from the perspective of who's receiving your message, how will this be read? And also, as the receiver, how are we reading it? And maybe take pause before we take personal offense to things because it's not always so aggressive. We just might be having a bad
Right.
day, or we just might
Right.
be extra sensitive that day, right?
Yeah. Those nuances that are missed through email and
Yes,
text sometimes, or messenger.
exactly, exactly. I do like the fact that we cover just about everything there is. That's why it's called digital etiquette, not social media etiquette, right? We talk about Zoom meetings and the etiquette around that, which has become so big over the years. And I think even more importantly, now that we are transitioning back into office life, right? We got so used to being in our pajama bottoms and professional tops on Zooms. But what does that look like, that transition look like now that we're kind of going back? And I think our culture has changed because of that. So for me, my favorite was probably the mobile section, the part 5, which talks about like context and messaging. And then I love the no one wants to hear your phone. That's a pet peeve of mine. When you're out in the world, like how do you hold yourself with your phone? And just like the clicking sounds, or like doing FaceTime in public drives me nuts personally. But these are things that I think are pretty universal, which is why we wrote about them.
Agree. The loud conversations on an airplane.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Right. Lily says meeting
Mhm.
invites without agenda that are actually set up as all day and busy without the call details or any actual information. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That would be devastating to me.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this before. I used to work in university, and there's so many times where they put like 20 people in a
Mm,
meeting, and there'd be like no set agenda. You kind of had an idea of what you wanted out of it. And then, everyone needs to hear themselves talk. So whether or not it's relevant or not, it's just the other. And I thought about another pet peeve, the
okay.
reply all to email that just says thanks.
Oh no, that and even in like the group text or messages, right? When people like make it a social hour and you're like, this is not what
Yeah.
this was for. I'm
Yeah.
in a lot of
Yeah.
Facebook groups where we're supposed to be talking about like business or a certain topic and it's for that, but then they'll be off talking about like birthday parties and stuff. And I'm like, I don't,
Yeah.
I get so many messages, you guys.
I want to
Right?
get home sometime. Stop it. Yeah.
Someday, someday. Um, what would you say are the reasons why it is important to practice good etiquette? Let's say in a professional setting. What do you think, Eric?
Well, etiquette in a professional setting, etiquette is the framework that provides a safe space for everybody to interact and feel like they're being heard, but also to get the most out of any interaction. So in a professional setting, etiquette is, obviously gets you further to whatever goal that you've set, whether it's, an outcome for a meeting, or if it's, making sure that everybody is on the same page as far as, what everybody's going to do to reach a certain goal, that sort of thing.
What about you, Kendra? What do you think is um, the importance of etiquette in our digital spaces?
When we look at our digital spaces, I think there's each one has its own culture.
Mm,
So whether it's work email has its own culture, work Slacks have its own culture and expectations, and Facebook has its own culture. So when you start to look at each one individually, you need to know, like, it's important to know what's expected and acceptable in some of those areas, because, and I don't mean, it's just, especially from the professional side, what's
hmm.
acceptable and what's frowned upon is going to be very different, and it's going to impact you in
Right.
different ways. But understanding the culture and nature of each platform is going to make a big difference. And
Yeah.
even though as they're starting to like blur a little bit, it's still important to pay attention to what's going on in each one and know how to handle yourself in each one, because each one has different rules, or you're not going to approach Reddit the same way you do Instagram.
Oh, no kidding. Right? By the way, for those of you watching, thanks again for tuning in. We are discussing the book that we wrote, Digital Etiquette for Dummies, which I have right here. Ooh, there it is. You can grab your copy. The link is down below on Amazon, but it's also available at all the fine retailers that would sell books. So, you know, your Barnes and Nobles and such. There's also a Audible version. I did not read it, so it must not be as good, but you know. For me, I think it's important to have good etiquette, and it goes beyond just good etiquette, right? And we talk about this in the book. It's empathy for other people. Mm-hmm. And I think that in this hyper digital phase that we've entered into, where there's this kind of the what do you call it, the third screen, or the safety of being the keyboard warrior and being able to say whatever we want. And I really, even myself, I have to pause sometimes and say, okay, how would I present myself if I were sitting in front of this person? And a lot of times it just would come down to, I would not have this conversation with this person. So maybe instead of me engaging, I should just walk away. And so that personally, that's even something I struggle with too, because I'm a very passionate person and I have very passionate beliefs and things. So I can be easily roped into things. And I have to remember, okay, if I'm sitting in front of this person, you know, I want to practice as much empathy as I can and have good emotional intelligence, but also respect my own mental, you know, like load and stuff. And is this worth it for me to get into this? And if I were sitting in front of them, it maybe not. So maybe the best option sometimes is just walk away.
Yes. Yes. That's what I always, when I had to train people on social media, like, don't engage with crazy. If you're not, you know, you're not going to change people's minds. If that's their, you know, if their goal is to help change yours, if you're both trying to change their minds, you can have a great discussion, but there's other ways to go about it. And then, yeah, paying attention to your tone and paying attention to their tone, because you never know, like we talked about earlier.
Right, exactly. Tonality is so hard to read. And we would love your questions as well. If you have questions or comments, or you have an opinion on digital etiquette or empathy in the digital world, we'd love to hear from you in the chat. I would love to know from you, what are some common mistakes that you see people make on the daily, just out in your digital lives, and how do you think that they can be avoided? What do you think, Eric? I'll let you hit that one out of the park first.
Well, somebody who uses LinkedIn fairly regularly, it's always people who are spamming you almost immediately after, you know, they want to connect with you. And I've gotten pretty good about figuring out, okay, this person is going to spam me 5 seconds after I add him as a connection. But it's also live events as well. People are trying to promote themselves and trying to hijack the conversation.
Yep.
And trying to make it all about themselves, their business. So it's always a challenge, to say the least, about you know, how do you manage that, and how do you actually take a person aside and talk with them about, you know, don't do that anymore, please. So,
yeah, how do we educate? That's going to be one of the other questions. Like, how do we educate people around this? We give them the book, right? We're like, hey, I have something for you. I highlighted some sections.
Don't mind all the tags I put into it.
Yeah, like, those are for you. You know, I'm just trying to help. What do you think, Kendra?
Personalize your experience.
Exactly. What do you think are some common mistakes that maybe are easy mistakes that you see a lot, that you're like, you know, this is a simple fix, y'all, or something you just see a lot?
You know, once again, like, the things that add up for me are the things that are like, do you need to reply to everybody? Do you need, you know, and add 3 emails of thank yous to everyone's email day? I think it's not, I think that, sorry, I've got so many ideas right now. I think it goes into, so many. Like, I know, but it's also like really paying attention to who you're talking to and who you're communicating with, because all of us have our own unique communication styles, and understanding who you're talking to and the target of, who that person is and what do you get out of that conversation? What do they need as well? So to Eric's point, it's not just within it for me. It's how can I help them and show up with that empathy and show up with that goal in mind, but also knowing that I need to adjust my communication style to theirs. So
Yeah.
I think that that's something a lot of people miss, especially in digital communication, because it's harder to always suss that out right away. So I think that it's paying attention to those little things that can make a big difference.
Right. I'm with you. I think that just sometimes I think people just need to take a minute, right? My mom always told me this thing where if you get angry, this is before digital, right? Believe it or not, some of us were actually alive before digital, and she would say if you get angry, write someone a letter and put that letter in a drawer and wait 24 hours and then read that
Mhm.
letter. And if you're still feeling that way, then you can approach them. And I have done that. And then I often think, okay, well, you might not wait 24 hours, but just like if you feel a certain way, like a negative way about maybe an email or a situation, just to pause and step away for a moment and then come back. And oftentimes that fixes the problem. Reading
Absolutely.
into that idea. But it goes back to having an awareness of other people and an awareness of yourself as well, right?
Hmm.
I like Rob says here, I use the framework, will this matter in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days before reacting? What a great framework.
Oh, that really is a good framework.
That's really good.
I use the go take a walk for 10 minutes.
There, that is so smart. Man, let me tell you.
Go take a walk, shake it
Um,
off.
Exactly. I really love this next question, and I want to present this not only to those of us here on the panel, but also those of you watching. How can you teach digital etiquette to children and young adults? Because I think this is like their world going forward, right? Like, and this is an
Mhm.
interesting question because I am a parent. My co-hosts are not parents, but I think it's a good. But we have educators and authors, and we have people in the comments. I would love to hear the different perspectives of how we can kind of help future generations. You know, and not only that, like Kendra and I were talking off screen about like the younger generations are coming in and they're thinking like if you use punctuation, it's passive aggressive, and like this kind of disconnect between us old millennials and older and then the younger generations. How do we teach that? How do we come to a place where we are all practicing good etiquette? It's certainly something to think about, but I'd love to hear what y'all think. That was a tongue twister, right? That was a
Excellent.
hard
That is.
one.
I'm like, I don't have a kid, so
You don't have to have kids though. I
no,
get
I
it though.
know.
It's like parents probably have a lot more of that they can do, but I think as a society, we can all do a better to be a good example.
So yeah, I think being a good example and really helping understand the framework, because once again, like you're talking about people who are growing up with digital, so they're going to have a different viewpoint on it. And
Hmm.
so I think it's setting an example, but also being flexible in terms of what's allowed today.
Yeah, I love
Okay,
that.
people are, if people don't want two spaces after a period when you're typing, just take one out. That's an easy fix. Like,
Hey man,
if I
that
don't,
was one
if
of
there's
those things they like learn it.
exactly. If there's things that are happening that there's no real reason for, it's just because we were always told that way, then that's one thing. But if it's an empathy or something that's like actually going to make a difference in terms of how you feel and how someone else feels, I think
Right.
that setting by example and helping really teach that, because that level of respect for other people, whether it's in person or online, it shouldn't differ.
Deb says she agrees about pause to respond and not react. And I think Rob Thomas also, he says, you don't have to reply. He tells his 12-year-old, you can choose to let
Mhm.
comments sit. Right. And let me tell you, that does a
Yeah,
lot for your mental health. Because
Mhm.
it really
it's,
does.
yeah, it does. Sometimes if you go into it, especially like social media comments and stuff where it gets kind of heated in the digital, squares, if you will, um, you see a lot of that where people get heated and just won't let it go. And sometimes like you can live in your anger or you can live in your wherever you are, but I'm gonna walk away and I'm gonna go like enjoy my life. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, this points to chapter 3 in the book.
There you
We talk
go.
about managers at any age, and
Mm-hmm.
we talk about adults being upfront with the right behavior and modeling that behavior.
Mhm.
We also talk
Yes.
about what students should do and what teachers should do. And
Yeah,
I don't have kids
Absolutely.
myself, but I help my mom with her infant and
that's
toddler
right.
daycare. So I'm still trying to, for the older ones, especially, the 3 and 4 year olds, I'm trying to, model that good behavior. Because they are naturally interested in, my computers. They like to come into my home office and look around and see
Mhm.
what they can play with. So naturally, they're drawn to the screen. I said, yeah, well, here's stuff you do and stuff you don't.
Yep. Yeah, and I do
Smart.
think that there are things that are definite don't do this sort of things, right? And we talk about that in the book, a lot of those things. And then there are things that are just generational differences. And Lily even says here, she moderates a group, and the disconnect with the very online Gen Zs who are, that's their life. Like they were born and raised in it, members, and the older boomer age members in the group is a huge chasm. One uses memes and slang and the other types all in caps. Isn't that the truth? By the way, my grandmother, who is not a generation boomer, she's, what is that, the greatest generation? She does all caps because she can't read without caps. So that's something to just understand is why do people do certain things? Sometimes they're not yelling at you. Or why do Gen Zs use certain slang? Because that's just the way their language has developed over time, you know? So just having that understanding. And again, it really comes back to empathy, right? Like, let's practice a little bit more empathy. As
Mhm.
a parent, you know, I have young children. And so I just really try to teach my kids in general just to be good humans. But I find that it's interesting to be a parent in the world that we live in today, because there's a lot of polarizing things in this world. And I find that kids are not affected by it unless their parents make it a thing. And so I
Mhm.
really try to make nothing a thing for, except good
Mhm.
stuff for my kids. So I really just, you know, like even during the lockdowns, I lived in California, everyone was wearing masks and, you know, there's no school. And so we didn't have, for instance, like Halloween, right? And I don't know how it was everywhere else, but we didn't have Halloween one year. And there was like a group of parents that were just freaking out. My kids' lives are ruined, no Halloween. Literally, I was like, it's not a problem. I'm just going to have some other activity. So we did kind of an Easter egg hunt. And I swear to you, my kids were like, this is the best Halloween ever. So sometimes it's just how we present things, teach them
Mhm.
the way, if you will. So, and I think that goes with anything with etiquette. You just have to learn to do the right thing and have that awareness of other people around you. And I think you'll be fine. So, but the book does cover all that good stuff, doesn't it?
It
This would be a
does.
great book for educators, for parents, for bosses, for Generation Boomer, for the Zers. Yes,
For
you
your team.
Xers and millennials too, for your teen. Yes, a book for everyone.
No, and I think that makes a lot of sense when you start looking at how to model your behavior because it's just, I mean, etiquette changed a lot over the years and in terms of what's allowed and what's not allowed. And I think that, Kelly and I talked a lot about this, and I think Eric too, when we were writing the book, is like used to not, the rule was never yell fire in a crowded theater, right? Like
Right.
just in terms of speech and etiquette. And now when you start to look at how does that translate online and what does that mean? And how do you do things online and move around where one, you're leaving a digital footprint so people will be able to see what you did and what you said. And two, really modeling that version of kindness and who do you want people to see and think of you when that is all that's left, right? Like if all you have left is your digital footprint and things that you said and did, what does that look like and how does that reflect on you?
Absolutely. So, as we kind of close out this conversation on the absolute importance of etiquette, I would love to know from each of you what is your like lasting last words of wisdom, your last tip, your last etiquette rule that people should follow besides buy the Digital Etiquette Dummies book, which is phenomenal. Obviously, I'm not just saying it because I helped write it, but it's a great book. Eric, what would you say is your at the end of the show tip?
Hmm. Share with discretion.
Ooh,
Um,
that's a good one.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah,
oh,
especially, well, anything, but especially photos or
Oh
videos.
yeah. Mm,
it's a really good one.
that's an excellent one, and that goes for everyone. Like I go straight to the parent brain. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes,
Hmm.
yes. Do
Hmm.
not share. I try not to share pictures of my kids, for instance, because it's just a dangerous world out there right now. So, what about you,
Hmm.
Kendra? What would you say is your final bit of advice or tip from digital etiquette?
I think respect people's time.
I like
So
that.
whether it's, if you're going to take the time to reach out to somebody, make sure you're not just sending the cold spam email, that you're not just responding because you want to respond, because you're not just scheduling a meeting you want to schedule, but actually take that time to just respect their time and know that everyone's busy. So what would you want to receive, or what would you not want to receive?
Absolutely. I love that. I love when people actually respect my time. So I agree. But that is so important, not only just from an individual point of view, but I know that Kendra, you wrote quite a bit about this in the Dummies book as well, about even like bosses and how we respect the
Yeah.
time of our, especially those employees who work from home, or during the
Hmm.
lockdowns and stuff, there was a lot more working from home. So how do we respect those boundaries? So important, absolutely. I would say, oh gosh, there's just so many.
I
There's so
know.
many. I think for me, I would practice the pause, right? And this is something I'm human too. I have to work on this. I think I wrote that part of the book and I still struggle. I think I wrote the part where I'm like, don't argue with people in Facebook groups. And literally on the daily, I'm like, maybe I should argue with them. No. Um, respect the pause, have a pause, step away. And that
Mhm.
goes for when you get an email. Again, tonality a lot of times is an internal thing when it comes to digital. It's very hard to read a tone. Someone could just be a snarky person like me, or a very blunt person. I'll send an email to someone and someone will read my emails on the regular and be like, oh my gosh, she's so mean. But I just am like someone who is doing 50,000 things at a time. And I'm like, bye. Okay, next, like I don't think to be
Yep.
like, hello, exclamation point, smiley face, whatever. So just pause before you react, I think is a good
Mhm.
etiquette tip. So,
Agree.
yeah. So with that, is there anything else? Oh, you need to read the book. Absolutely. Absolutely. Read the book. Fantastic book. You can get it right now. The link is down below. Digital Etiquette for Dummies. And as Eric alluded to, or straight up said at the beginning, this is an evergreen book. This isn't like some, like social media 101 or anything like that, that it has to be updated although that would have kept us in business as writers and we would have as many books as Eric. But
It's
we wrote
true.
the
It's true.
evergreen etiquette book. So,
Mhm.
It's not about Clubhouse, guys. It's about etiquette.
I don't even think Clubhouse is in the book. there's no
Mhm.
there's no Google Plus in the book. So
No.
definitely check it out. You can get it in the Kindle version. You could get it in the print version and then highlight it and add your tabs and all the good things. And you
Mhm.
can get it in Audible. So that is awesome if you're like me and you like to listen to your books. With that, I am going to say thank you so much for joining us today. And please allow me to give it up to my co-authors so they can say their goodbyes as well. But I, for one, really appreciated your time coming in and sharing with us the importance of digital etiquette. It's like the lost art that we all need to repractice. We all need to get back into it.
That's true.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Kelly, for hosting us.
Yeah,
And yeah, thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Kendra, for, well, being a great co author. Same to you, Kelly.
same. Yep. And
Thank
if you guys have any questions too, be sure to reach out to us. And Kendra, what about you? Your wonderful goodbyes. I'm on the wrong side of the screen. Woo.
Thank you all for watching. Thanks for reading. It's a great book. It's just filled with so many tips. Thank you both for being amazing co-authors. And I think the world's a better place when we all know who we're talking to, when we're paying attention and being respectful and
Absolutely. It never
kind.
hurts to take a little time to respect other people. And I think if more of us would do that and really thought about the person on the other side of the screen, we probably would get into less arguments online. Probably, yeah, I would say. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you so much for participating in the comments, and we will catch you later. Bye,
Great. Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.